Tonight's big stories: Philippine and United States military officials visit the EDCA sites in Cagayan and Pampanga and begin talking about adding more bases.
In the face of the ongoing food crisis, the Philippines becomes the world's biggest importer of rice, overtaking China.
And newly appointed Department of Migrant Workers Officer in Charge, Attorney Leo Cacdac, is joining us in the studio to discuss why they're asking for more money in next year's budget.
Welcome to the show. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Danny Laurel.
And I'm Sean Yao.
We begin tonight with the Philippines and the U.S. now considering more EDCA sites. This after the armed forces reported a resurgence of Chinese vessels swarming the Rosul or Iroquois Reef in the West Philippine Sea. These vessels are described by the AFP as double agents. So what you're seeing on your screens are photos of these Chinese ships released by the AFP Western Command. As you can see, some of them are positioned close together while others are stationed separately around the reef. The AFP says all these ships are Chinese fishing vessels. The Maritime Domain Awareness flight conducted by the Westcom found that some 30 Chinese vessels were stationed in some parts of the West Philippine Sea. Most of them are in Iroquois Reef, where some 22 Chinese fishing vessels were spotted. 5 were observed in Sabina Shoal and 2 in the Nares Bank. Though these are fishing vessels, the Westcom is still concerned, saying they also function as maritime militia vessels of China.
These Chinese fishing vessels are actually double agents, kumbaga, kasi they are also there to perform aggressive maneuvers at the orders of probably the Chinese Coast Guard. So, kumbaga, they are force multipliers ng mga law enforcement platforms ng China.
Now, apart from these aggressive maneuvers or natural resources, again, this is not a new story. Way back, I think, under President Duterte, or even under President Aquino, they would already see these Chinese fishing boats, quote unquote, filled with like giant clams, corals, and
so
whatnot.
they
Do you
were
remember that?
dredging these natural resources too.
To what
This was-
end? I think, to bring it back, sell it.
Yes,
Maybe use it as vitamins and other.
So there's been,
Thanks.
this time around, there's been damage to corals again, according to the AFP. And they're very concerned now about the negative effects on the natural resources.
But is this clear that the fishermen are also maritime militia vessels? This is what...
That's what the
That's
AFP
what they are-
believes.
Okay.
Although, of course, if we ask China, they might deny it. But
Fishermen.
Plausible deniability. They will say it's then that's why they're
we
calling
have
them
the same? Do we
it's
have
the
double
same-
agents.
It's the same as the issue with the construction materials on the Philippine vessels, right? We
Right.
say it's not construction materials. They said it's construction materials. I don't know who to believe at this point.
All right, and this is also why there's so much talk of joint maritime patrols. Last week, Australia's defense chief, who was in town, said they will conduct joint patrols with the U.S., or with us rather, in the not too distant future. And today, joint exercises were once again on the table when Philippine and American officials held their annual meeting on mutual defense. This meeting was led by AFP Chief of Staff Romeo Bronner and U.S. Indo-Pacific Commander Admiral John Christopher Aquilino.
We are in the process of now working with the other countries who in fact want to join the joint sale. So aside from the United States, several countries have given their intention of joining to promote the rules-based international order.
And aside from joint maritime patrols, the allies are now also eyeing the creation of more joint bases. Our reporter Brian Castillo joined military officials in a visit to the existing EDCA sites in Cagayan. Brian, what do you have for us?
Yes, Danny, AFP Chief Romeo Browner and U.S. Indo-Pacific Commander Admiral John Aquilino confirmed that during their visit to some EDCA sites yesterday, Aquilino said he and Browner will make the recommendation for additional EDCA sites, but notes that, quote, there are still work to do before we get to that. There are currently 9 sites in the country established for the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. Aquilino and Browner personally visited the EDCA sites in Cagayan, as well as the runway at the Basa Air Base in Florida Blanca, Pampanga, which is now nearing completion. Aquilino says more projects are expected to be funded in these EDCA sites. Browner meanwhile clarifies that these sites are still military bases of the Philippines and that these have nothing to do with the growing tensions in other countries like Taiwan. Danny?
Thanks so much for that report, Brian.
Now, while all that is going down, the Senate is looking to come up with a new Philippine map to counter China's now 10-dash claim. The Senate has formed a special committee that will draft a map incorporating features in the West Philippine Sea. The panel will be in charge of identifying maritime zones and boundaries. The committee also plans to institutionalize the name West Philippine Sea and is considering renaming the Benham Rise into Talampas ng Pilipinas.
Hindi po malayo sa sigmura ang kawalan ng maritime zones ng Pilipinas. Leaving the Philippines' maritime zones largely undefined will slow our ability to responsibly exploit and develop our resources. How can Filipinos properly enjoy the bounties of the ocean?
Now, let's not forget that earlier this month, President Bongbong Marcos promised that there will be a response to China's expanded 10-dash line claim, although he did not specify what this response would be. But actually, let's refresh our memories. Let's hear it from PBBM himself.
We, of course, will continue to defend our territorial sovereignty, our territorial rights. We received the news that now the 9-dash line has been extended to the 10-dash line. And so these are we have to respond to all of these, and we will. Again, these are operational details that I would prefer not to talk about.
No.
Yeah, well, maritime experts are also agreeing with that. You know, it's high time to also do our own map, so to speak. Here's what they had to say.
Kailangan natin ayusin ang ating boundary para alam natin kung ano ang kailangan natin ipagtanggol. Kasi kung hindi natin alam ang boundary at hindi natin alam ang batas within that boundary, ano ang ipagtatanggol natin?
Any further effort to clarify Philippine maritime claims only further advances that point, that the Philippines is a member of the international legal community in good standing. It bases its claims therein. Any maritime disputes it may have with its neighbors are housed within that framework. That any maritime claims are made within the context of UNCLOS. And by so doing, it shines a greater light on the illegal nature of China's maritime claims.
That's what it's going to come down to, map drawing. But we're curious to know how many dashes exactly this planned Philippine map is going to have. News 5's Camille Samonte has the details on that. Camille, how soon can we get a hold of this maritime map?
Reg, once the panel identifies our maritime zones, that's only when they can start crafting this map. And it's not going to be an easy process. They have to identify which areas fall under our exclusive economic zones, which ones are under the continental shelf, and on top of that, there's going to be a lot of consultations needed moving forward. There will be at least 5 hearings for this maritime map, and the panel wants to invite key cabinet secretaries, and get this, experts from Beijing. When asked about it, Senator Francis Tolentino said they want to get insights from academics from Beijing. We're still trying to get more details, but just like what they said, it's going to be a long process before we get to see what this map looks like. Reg?
All right, thanks for that detail, Camille Samonte. To help us put things into context, we have with us tonight security analyst Chester Cabalza. Chester, good evening. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you. Good evening, Reg, Sean, and Danielle. Thank you for having me again.
There's so many things to talk about. I wanted to start with the potentially new EDCA sites. Philippine and U.S. military officials now considering, again, no confirmation yet, they're just considering adding more EDCA sites. We are now at 9 EDCA sites. What do you think? Is this a good idea?
Yes, it is a good idea so that China will not react that we are containing them. Although, of course, we know for a fact that the 4 added EDCA sites are located in northern Philippines. Of course, we saw that in Cagayan, 2 of them are placed there, and then 1 in Isabela and 1 in Balabac and Palawan. So I would suggest perhaps that we also go down to Visayas and Mindanao so that it would be holistic, although we have 5 other locations also from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
Is that so it looks more fair when you pepper, I mean, the southern parts?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Because we have also issues with our southern corridor with our maritime neighbors in Malaysia and Indonesia. And at the end of the day, we have the archipelagic doctrine principle that says that the Philippine archipelago is one whole country, of course, that would also help us in the Maritime Zones Act and the archipelagic cities that we are proposing to have that map also coming from the Philippines.
Right, Chester, as all this maritime action heats up in the South China Sea / West Philippine
Right.
Sea, what do you make of our response being, I mean, first off, of course, a new Philippine map? And how should that look?
Well, this is also a response to counter the disinformation coming from China. Remember that whenever we are young, usually governments and countries teach their young people. That's part of conditioning the minds of the people on the metes and bounds of our territories. That's the reason why we study maps as early as elementary. And I was told by the National Security Council that, of course, in the upcoming map that the government will present, it would cover also the claims of the Philippines in the Spratly Islands in the West Philippine Sea, also the Philippine Rice, which will be renamed later on, and of course the Sabah, which is of course contested up to now because it has been claimed also by Malaysia. So definitely, it would give us a visuals of the metes and bounds of our territories.
Okay. Are you seeing these actions now from our part, the EDCA sites, the map being drawn out, as possibly causing even more aggression in the WPS? We also see these fishing / militia vessels swarming. Does that have anything to do with what's going on?
Well, basically, we see the evolution of what is happening in the West Philippine Sea / South China Sea. China is also reacting based from our actuations. If you try to notice in the last resupply mission that we had, they also use small vessels for that so that they can maneuver easily. Although they have a huge armada in the South China Sea, in response to the joint patrol that we have with like-minded countries. Remember that we don't have yet a joint patrol with the U.S., even if the U.S. is our oldest treaty ally. We only had a joint sail with them. So, of course, these are part of the evolution of what is happening in the West Philippine Sea, given that it has become a flashpoint area for geopolitics.
But kaya nga, Chester, I mean, you say it's a good idea to have more EDCA sites, but isn't that going to get Beijing even more riled up? I mean, it's already extremely sensitive, right? And it's already accused Washington of stoking the fire.
Ibababa natin sila, it's not only located in Luzon because that's the reason why they are reacting. Remember, you have two in Cagayan. And ang patama nila doon is because of Taiwan. So to have a fair and balanced perspective and to de-escalate the political and geopolitical bias on it, we should also bring it down to Visayas and Mindanao para hindi nila isipin na, kami ang pinapatamaan nyo eh. No? So we have to find the strategic locations so that, hindi lang naman maritime security ang problema natin in the Philippines.
And what do you think what do you think might happen if the additional EDCA sites, again, hypothetical, if it gets placed in the north pa rin, what do you think might happen there?
I think there should be strong articulation coming from the Defense Department and from the national government. Why we have to justify, why do we have to strengthen yung gates natin in Northern Hemisphere? Because there must be a reason behind it kung bakit sa norte pa rin yung positions or yung EDCA sites natin. But I think for me, the flashpoint area really would be in the West Philippine Sea. Because of course, Taiwan is another issue because of the one China policy that we have. And of course the OFWs that we have there. No? So that's a different thing. But the real action would be in the West Philippine Sea, South China Sea, because of course that's a major flashpoint that we are seeing right now.
Right, Chester, recently, of course, tuloy-tuloy, no, itong pagsashadow ng mga militia vessels. Now, the Westcom is saying that these Chinese boats, those smaller boats that you were talking about earlier, that these are actually double agents. What is the security sector saying? Do you see the exact same thing, that these are, in fact, fishing boats come militia vessels?
And how do you know? How have you confirmed, if so?
Yeah, of course, we have the intelligence group also. And, from afar, kaya nga napansin ninyo, nagpadala din yung US ng aircraft nila. Yun yung ikinagagalit ng kapitbahay natin and some of the other groups, no? Because from there on, makikita mo yung hugis ng bangka, no? Our boats are with cutting.
Yes.
Yung walang katig, automatically alam mo hindi sa atin yun. So you can easily identify it.
All right. Chester, in recent resupply missions in and around the West Philippine Sea, no, papansin natin medyo naghinay-hinay na sa pag-water cannon tong China. Of course, they got so much flack from the international community the last time that happened. What do you make of this toning down? Is this just a PR thing para, magpabango muna sila?
We saw precedents in 2014 that started the water cannon after we filed arbitration. After we filed the arbitration case to China, ginamit nila ito in 2021 after nag-turn back si President Duterte, pinalakas yung visiting forces agreement, and then of course in 2023, that's the first attempt that they did to Marcos Jr. administration. But prior to that, they used laser in February 2023. No, so ginagamit nila ito sa tuwing pinapalakas natin yung lawfare natin. Yes, of course, there was a flack from the international community, kaya nga medyo naghinay-hinay sila, and also they call for security alliance, at nakita natin na nakatulong ito because of course that is our immediate intervention as of the moment, no? But we'll see what happens because it keeps on evolving, and they are also studying our strategies basically.
Okay. Chester, last question on the map that's being drafted. We're getting reports that they're even inviting academics from Beijing to participate in drafting this. That sounds very ironic. Can you comment on
That's good. Actually, by November, my organization will hold a high-level conference, and we have invited 2 Chinese academics because we wanted also to hear from them. So that we know their plans, we know what they want. We also have American academics coming over, and this is the first time that any think tank will hold representatives, academics coming from the US, China, and Southeast Asia. So the mere fact that the Senate and our government is inviting the Chinese academics, that means that we are fair. Tama lang yun. So that
and are they fair? Are they unbiased?
Academics are supposed to be fair, and it should be scientific. That's the reason why you invite academics and scholars, so that they give us the real score, unbiased reasoning, and not propagandist agenda. So that's the role of the academics.
And do you already know who you're inviting, or you guys are still looking?
We have invited 2 academics from China. I won't mention yet the name because we are still processing their visa to the Philippines. But nevertheless, what we can offer is that we want a fair and balanced perspective coming from the US, China, and Southeast Asia, and of course the Philippines. We will try to make it happen so that we can at least have a good leverage to consider the ideas of these big powers from our neighbors.
Well, I wish you a very fair and fruitful discussion. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. That was security analyst Chester Cabalza.
Thank you.
Now over to Libya now, where at least 5,000 people have been reported dead, while thousands are still missing after catastrophic floods hit the eastern coastal city of Derna. Residents are desperately searching for missing relatives, while rescue workers are appealing for more body bags. Whole stretches of Derna were obliterated when a powerful storm on Sunday unleashed a torrent of water, sweeping many out to sea. Buildings collapsed with families sleeping inside. Moderna's mayor told Al Arabiya television the death toll could go as high as 20,000.
Unfortunately, flooding has also hit parts of Cebu City. It almost looked like a waterfall in Barangay Talamban as floodwater gushed through the village. In other areas, residents had to wade through waist-deep flood. Around 100 families had to be evacuated to avoid unwanted casualties. Flooding has started to subside in the area, but heavy rainfall is continuing. Local authorities want more help from the national government in a more permanent solution to their flood problems.
Halos hanggang liig na po ang lalim ng tubig at lalong lalala pa ito kapag patuloy na umulan. Problema talaga ang drainage system, dapat intervene sa city at national government.
Right, time to pause for a quick break. Right after that, the word war rages on between Vice President Sara Duterte and Senator Risa Ontiveros, and neither lady seems willing to back down. The latest on that when we return. Keep it here.
Watching the big story here on One News. Now here's a list I'm sure the government did not want us topping. The Philippines is now the world's biggest rice importer, overtaking China. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA, is projecting the Philippines will need more imported rice in what they call the marketing year from 2023 to 2024. They estimate some 3.8 million metric tons for us, higher than China's rice imports in the same period, which is pegged at 3.5 million metric tons. Now, it's worth noting that the Philippines' orders for imported rice has decreased over the past years. However, China's orders have likewise decreased even more due to the weak demand. But to put it into context, the Philippines has a population of 113 million, while China has a population of 1.4 billion. Now, speaking to businessmen over in Singapore, President Marcos said the aspiration is to provide food at prices people can afford, but we are not there yet. The Federation of Free Farmers agrees with the USDA's projection and laments our continued reliance on imported produce.
Baka yung USDA give up na rin sa ating gobyerno. No? Parang they are saying if everything stays the same and the government programs stay the same, then the imports will increase. No? Ang implication nun, the government programs are not succeeding in improving local production.
So I guess the question has now become, beyond that price cap, what can we do? Shyla Francisco has been covering this issue, and she has some answers for us. Shyla, go ahead.
Sean, the government, specifically the Finance Department, is proposing a temporary reduction in rice import tariff rates to help reduce prices. From the current 35% import tariff rate, the DOF is seeking to reduce it to zero, or at least 10%, to help arrest the surge in rice prices. The Agriculture Department, meanwhile, says that they expect the Philippines to import much less than the USDA's projection of 3.8 million metric tons in 2023. They also noted the intensified efforts to help strengthen local production of rice in the country. Now, adding to what was said earlier, President Bongbong Marcos said the pandemic showed that the Philippines cannot afford to continue its dependence on imports for sufficient supply of food at affordable prices. He emphasized the aspiration for the Philippines to once again provide its sufficient supply of food at prices that the people can afford. Sean?
Thank you for that update, Shaila Francisco.
The word war between Vice President Sara Duterte and Senator Risa Ontiveros is raging on.
Did you catch that? I saw it online.
I think all of social media caught it. They're just everyone is being a marites to this issue.
Okay, but let's put some context to it first, right? Before we get into the latest episode.
So Vice President Sara released a statement September 11 thanking President Marcos and other officials for supporting her request for confidential funds, right? In that same statement, she attacked opposition lawmakers, including Senator Ontiveros and ACT party list member Representative Franz Castro, but not other people. Like, for instance,
specific to these two.
Yes, exactly, very specific to
She
these
name
two.
dropped.
Singled out these two
Of the opposition.
Correct. Sarah said Ontiveros amuses the nation with her flair for drama, while Senator Ontiveros replied that trabaho lang, it's walang drama dito, right?
I think it's important to mention before that statement on September 11 was, I think a few days before that, there was the interpellation over at the Senate. It's a budget interpellation. I actually watched it. It's going around Facebook. It's about a 30-minute clip where you can see Senator Risa Ontiveros really questioning VP Sara Duterte and
over the confidential intelligence funds. Exactly. This is what it boils down to. We can also recall Senator Ontiveros in an earlier video saying there's nothing wrong with lawmakers scrutinizing CIFs because it's part of their job. Sabi pa ni Senator Ontiveros, hindi special ang OVP.
She's just doing her job.
She is just doing her job.
So, we have a clip where we're about to hear VP Sara answering the question of why she singled out these two ladies. Let's listen to that first.
I do not respect Ms. Castro and Ms. Ontiveros. I have no respect for them. Hindi naman kami ever nagsabi na special ang Office of the Vice President. We respected the process doon sa budget hearing ng House of Representatives and ng Senate. The decision whether to grant confidential funds is really up to Congress.
And now also, there is a reply from Senator Ontiveros posted just this afternoon. Let's roll that.
Hindi ko kailangan ang respeto mo, VP Sara. Kung hindi mo kayang irespeto ang mga katrabaho mo, irespeto mo man lang sana ang paggasta ng pera ng bayan. Higit 1 linggo na, simula nang nag-hearing tungkol sa confidential funds, pero mas marami ka pang patutsada kaysa sa paliwanag.
I love how there are selfie videos now with the specific responses. No? Nobody has to even interview them anymore.
They can just post it.
I'll just inform you.
Exactly. But anyways, the point is that they are at each other's throats, and we'll see how it plays out. Because again, I mean, VP Sara is correct. Congress has the power to decide on her confidential and intelligence funds, but then again, Senator Ontiveros is in the minority. So
Saying if you have nothing to hide, why not?
Yeah, I think the
we'll have to
minority,
keep
of course,
following
taking
this
this
story.
chance because these budgets will very likely come to pass.
we'll see. We're going to pause for a quick one, but after this break, we'll be speaking with newly appointed Department of Migrant Workers Officer in Charge, Attorney Hans Cacdac, about his plans for the agency. That and more when the big story returns. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News. After the passing of Secretary Toots Ople, President Marcos appointed Undersecretary Hans Leo Cacdac as officer in charge of the Department of Migrant Workers. The agency is grappling with a number of issues, among them illegal recruitment and allegedly the jockeying for the post that Secretary Ople left behind. Here to talk us through all of these is Attorney Hans Leo Cacdac. Attorney and USEC, I should say. Good evening. Thanks for coming all this way to join us.
Thank you.
Let's get the second issue out of the way first, which is yung sa Senate hearing, Senator Raffy Tulfo was saying that he heard that there was jockeying for the top post that Secretary Ople, rest in peace, had left behind. Is that true? There's a lot of people fighting over it?
I can't really tell, or I can't really say for sure. Of course, it is within the senator's prerogative to raise the subject matter, but I'd like to think that we're all professionals, we're all bureaucrats who just want to buckle down to work in our department. So we all work together, we meet and discuss and resolve issues and concerns. We just met this afternoon, all of us are senior officials. So the work continues, and I think that's the point that, or that's at least one of the legacies that Secretary Toots Ople wanted to leave behind, that she pointed us in the right direction, and it's all just a matter of moving on and preserving her legacy and continuing the activities and strengthening the programs and services that she started.
I take it to mean you're fine if you don't get the top position.
We're fine, yeah, of course.
No, you yourself.
Yes, of course. We're all bureaucrats and professionals. We're done as with what we are told by the chief executive. We're good soldiers, all of us.
On your part, Attorney USEC, you have been working with OFWs for a long, long time. I think for most of my tenure working in the newsroom. Also myself, don't worry. No, but how has it been without Secretary Toots? I know you've been there even before this department has been put up, but we've had her for such a short time. Will you just carry out the projects that she has started out?
Yes, of course. I've been there longer than Sec Toots, but we've been working together for a long time. Since I was deputy of the POA in 2006, she was already an OFW advocate. So it's nearly 2 decades of us at government and the Blas Ople Center, which she headed, working hand in hand to help distressed and trafficked OFWs. So we've worked together a long time. She's a dear friend, and her friendship and legacy lives on. So it's a matter of ourselves knowing the direction that she put forward, her legacy, and and moving on. Like for instance, welfare and protection of OFWs is at the top of our agenda. She put up the One Repatriation Command Center, which consolidates all of our functions, different offices within the department as it relates to helping distressed OFWs come home safely. So that has resulted in 10,000 actual repatriations in the last 12, 13 months. So that's an average around 750 a month. 750 reunited distressed OFW families per month. So that's not a bad record, and we hope to keep it up.
Okay. Attorney, now let's talk about the budget that you were asking for. Increased from the previous year, 3.5 billion. You're asking for 5 billion more at a period where this is being looked at very closely, particularly for confidential funds. Can you justify why your department would need so much?
Yes, we proposed 9 billion pesos to the Department of Budget and Management, and we got out of the National Expenditure Program that the DBM crafts, we got 3.5. And in fact, the 3.5 is around 800 million or so less than what we got last year. So we're pushing for more because we need to set up regional offices all over the country. We're starting nearly from scratch in that regard because we are now a department and we inherited relatively small satellite offices of the POEA.
Yeah. Okay.
So we want to get bigger regional-wise, and so we're constructing, we're building, we're bringing in more people on a per regional basis.
Teka lang, is there still POEA?
The POEA has been abolished or absorbed by the DMW.
Okay, so now there's only DMW, no more POEA.
Yes, no more POEA.
Oh, I didn't know
and although we are now in the building where POEA used to be,
I was
Ortigas
gonna say it's
EDSA.
very near where I live, so I always pass by.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Yes.
carry on with your the budget.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then of course strengthening our overseas posts, 39 of them all around the world, where most OFWs are concentrated, and there we want to improve the what we call the migrant workers resource centers, which are venues for activities of OFW, shelters for OFW. So to improve that, we want to purchase vehicles, especially in places like Saudi, which is a huge country and where OFWs are scattered all over the kingdom, and we want to visit them wherever they may be and serve them wherever they may be. And then, of course, welfare assistance. We want to increase our programs and services. One of Secretary Toots' dying wishes was a cancer fund for OFWs. And so part of the 5 billion is a proposal to set up a cancer fund, which will cover, hopefully, even those who are here afflicted by cancer. So we want to help along those lines as well, and that will cost or need some resources.
All right. Actually, Secretary Tulfo, in fairness, has also defended your confidential funds. We understand that illegal recruitment remains to be one of the biggest problems when it comes to OFWs and your sector. How much confidential funds is the agency asking for?
Okay. Secretary Rafi is very aware of our anti-illegal recruitment drive, which includes surveillance and operations. Surveillance and operations meaning we monitor the activities based on leads and information or intel, reported activities of illegal recruiters or human traffickers. So we monitor their activities, and in this manner we need resources, and and then we shut them down or bring them to court or have them arrested by the police authorities if they are caught red-handed. Okay, so we need resources along those lines. And of course, Senator Rafi is looking at the possibility of confidential funds. But some senators also think that it might just be a matter of increasing the budget, the line item budget.
Meaning it doesn't have to be confidential.
Yes.
Is this above the 5 billion you're asking for?
It's within.
Within.
It's within. So, well, 10 million was the amount bandied around, but we're saying, of course, it could be a little more. So there will be another hearing actually on Monday. We'll be discussing
How much would you want? Like if you were able to dictate an amount that you really
for anti-illegal recruitment. It could be more than 10 million, because one of the things we were raising with Senator Coco, for instance, Pimentel, is the possibility of providing financial assistance to illegal recruitment victims. Because illegal recruitment victims are victimized most especially in the area of finances. So the illegal recruiter will say, you leave for X country, give me 100,000, 200, 300, 400,000 pesos, and the employment does not materialize at all. The recruitment is not sanctioned by the DMW, etc. So in that situation where a victim has coughed up 100 to 400,000 pesos, then obviously when that victim comes to us, he or she is cash trapped, financially challenged, so he or she would need help. So that's where the assistance fund can come in. Because if we don't give them that assistance, they give up, and they may even fall prey to a settlement in the shadows with the illegal recruiter who just give them, let's say, 15,000, 20,000 pesos.
Wait, hold on, Yusek. Help us understand how big of a problem this illegal recruitment is. And what are the kinds of jobs being advertised, and why are people falling for them?
Illegal recruitment continues to be a scourge and a problem. And I think it's best to think of it that way, because if we let our guard down, then we will allow it to proliferate. The most common, there are several what we call badges of illegal recruitment. So the most common sign of illegal recruitment would be an offer for a job with a promise to leave right away. So for instance, in this particular country, in this particular country, for instance, in an ASEAN country, visa-free, right? And some other destinations. You can go there right now. You don't visa needed. Here's a plane ticket. You leave tomorrow. Give us some money. Okay? So that person will cough up the money, And obviously, the amount will be bigger than the plane ticket amount of the plane ticket. So that person will leave and end up there in that particular destination and have nothing.
Is this usually for like let's say house help jobs, or does this also affect a lot of engineers, professionals?
It can cover a whole range of jobs. Well, if it's the highly skilled or professional jobs, then you would have a lesser degree of culpability or vulnerability, because the professionals would I should say have some judgment in this, and to avoid illegal recruiters. But for the middle income and even the lower income jobs, yes, these are where the job offers dangled by the illegal recruiters would be.
And what have you been doing exactly, concrete things to try to like stamp these down? Or do they just keep cropping up again, the same people over and over again? Meaning, if we are saying in agriculture they have cartels, does the same like mafia or cartel exist with illegal recruitment?
Well, unfortunately, in every market there is a legitimate side and a black market side, or should I say a dark side or illegal side. So, and the same is true with recruitment. So there will be legal recruiters and illegal recruiters. The thing is, one is people must be informed. They should know the badges or signs of illegal recruitment. One of them is that which I mentioned. There will be a dangled tourist-free or tourist visa before the person for work, for bogus work, etc. And the other point to make is that aside from being informed, people would need to know where to go. So the remedies, so the TMW, we have hotlines, we have also cooperative measures with the DOJ, okay? And then the one that I mentioned on operations and surveillance. So we have to crack down on the illegal recruiters. We have to crack the whip together with law enforcement.
So these regional centers that you're building.
Can you just specify the hotline first for the benefit
The
of our
hotline
viewers?
essentially is something that we share with OWA, 1348.
Okay. 1348.
Where I need to plug in the OWA because Administrator Arnel Ignacio has been so gracious to share his hotline. It's 1348.
So you're sharing a hotline with
Right
the
now.
Is it better because everything's cohesive?
Well, in a sense, yes, because it's just one hotline. But we're also developing our own call center, contact center at the DMW. So we're new, we're relatively new. So what we've been doing is setting up shop in terms of personnel, and the call center is soon to be developed. But in the meantime, shared with Admin Arnel.
Is it realistic po that it's part of your mandate to protect, because you said you're going to provide financial assistance to victims of scammers? I mean, it's quite difficult to be, I mean, it's, of course, you don't want to say it's their fault, but at the same time, yeah, there's so many victims of this, and you cannot be using all your funding just because they were, scammed by external forces.
Well, I think the key is to provide assistance, one, to those who need it and in their hour of need. And OFWs bringing so much into our economy need help when they need it. Okay, number one. Number two is we help the illegal recruitment victims because we want not only to help them, but also want cases prosecuted. Because if
they're your witnesses.
if that victim does not is not helped, then that victim gives up, and no case is filed. So no deterrent factor comes in, no fear is put in place, or that could be foisted upon illegal recruiters. So it's a matter of enforcing the law and at the same time helping the victim.
All right, Yusek, you mentioned 39 regional centers you want to put up. I imagine those are going to be centers to try to tamp down, of course, on illegal recruitment at the same time, so people can easily access you guys. They don't have to go all the way to Ortigas EDSA and visit you. At the same time, you also mentioned that you are still like getting on your legs in terms of staffing. Data has it there are still over 1,250 vacancies under the Office of the Secretary, and there's about 89 vacancies under OWA. Are the numbers still accurate?
Well, we've brought the numbers down. Probably I just don't have the exact figures with me. We have a very able Undersecretary, Tonette Aliones, from the Civil Service Group to help us there and to run the hiring process. We've hired personnel already, and we've first thing that we did actually was to retain most of the POA personnel as DMW personnel, and now hiring the new personnel. We hope to continue this process of hiring. It's actually 16 regional centers.
Okay.
The 39 would be the overseas
Overseas.
posts, yes. So 16 representing each region in the country, region 1, 2, 3, etc. So we're hoping to set up 16 regional offices that are commensurate to a regional office of a department. Because what we have right now are satellites from the old POEA, smaller satellites.
Sir, I have another issue now. When we talk about repatriation, and there are some reports that say anecdotal that those who have overstayed in specific countries are having a tough time.
TNT.
Yeah, basically TNT. Coming back home, especially in the Arab countries, they need to be cleared sometimes for months before they're, and then wala na silang employment, they have no more money to even survive. What can we do about these situations?
Yes, there are many types of cases of former OFWs who have a hard time coming home because of immigration issues or concerns. So you have an OFW who, for instance, will run away from their employer, escaping oppressive labor conditions. But in that situation, the employer sees it as an escape or absconding situation. So an immigration case is filed against that person. So there's a blot on the record of that absconding person. So what we do is step in and try to cure the situation in terms of clearing the name of the worker with immigration.
So you make arreglo, basically.
Yes, if there are immigration penalties, we pay until they come home. In some cases, they get sick as they wait. They wait for a bit of time, let's say 2-3 years with the immigration case, develop an illness. Yes, they develop an illness because sometimes it comes unknown to us, unbeknownst to us, that somebody is already going through that immigration difficulty, and then they come forward in 2-3 years' time and say, I have a problem. So we pay off the penalty, and if ill or sick for the duration of the time that he or she is undocumented with immigration issues, then we even help that person get well before they come home, pay for hospital bills unpaid. They don't have insurance most likely because they have immigration issues. So we pay. We have an action fund. I think I need to mention that. The DMW law created a 1.2 billion peso action fund where we can pay off these expenses to bring people home.
Sounds like our budget is extremely hard to predict.
Yeah. And then lastly,
yes,
just
in
very
that
quickly, Yusek, talk to us about your digitization efforts. Wala nang OEC, right? I was once an OFW, by the way, and I know deeply the pains of trying to get an OEC. So ano na ngayon? OFW pass
You look
na.
familiar, actually. We might have met.
I used to be with Channel News Asia, so.
Okay.
But in any case, it used to be really difficult. So now you've transitioned to what? OFW pass?
Okay, so it used to be the OEC, right? Which is essentially a document that says you are a legitimate OFW having gone through the POA and now the DMW. Okay. So there was a process. It became electronic, but now Secretary Toots has taken a step further to put it on the smartphone through an app. So now that OEC is renamed an OFW Pass, it's also now for free because Sec Ben Jokno allowed us, Sec Toots asked Sec Jokno to allow us to waive the 100 peso payment, and Sec Jokno said yes, so we're thankful. So it's faster, and it's free through the smartphone app. However, it's on pilot test run.
Will this be in the eGov Super App as well? Will this be linked up?
Eventually.
Okay.
But we're doing this by ourselves at the moment with some advice from DICT. But at the moment, we're doing this on our own. September 29 is the last day of the 60-day pilot test run. We will assess after that. But so far, 21,000 OFW passes have been issued, of which 5,400 of them have gone through immigration successfully using the pass. So we're hoping that it works and the pilot test run will be successful. 10 countries initially on this pilot test run, so we're hoping to go full blast after that. September
This year,
29.
you think?
Hopefully this year.
I ask on behalf of all OFWs out there.
Yes, hopefully we're praying, but there are some glitches that we're still trying to address, and hopefully we hurdle all these glitches
Okay,
by
fair
month's
enough.
end.
We thank you so much for joining us tonight and
Thank
talking about
you.
all these issues. That was DMW, Department of Migrant Workers Officer in Charge, USEC Hans Leo Cacdac.
All right, that's it for the show tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in and have a good night.